Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon. It's one or the other. Oh, I might need everyone to mute themselves. Good morning, everyone. Excited to have you all here. This webinar hosted by the Proven Group, all about challenges and opportunities in manufacturing. We are waiting for a couple of our panelists to join. They're just coming in, so we will get started and get us on the road. I encourage you to use the chat. We do like to have an interactive webinar, so please use the chat and please feel free to drop a link to your LinkedIn profile in there so that people can connect with you. What I'm going to do for everyone's ease is I am going to spotlight the presenters so that it's a little bit easier for you to see what is going on. And I have had some amazing people who are here today share with me that they've got a couple of questions. So please, as we go, feel free to put your hand up. It is an informal conversation, so we'll be, asking lots of questions, sharing lots, and really hoping for your input and participation. So those of you who do not know, the Proven Group is everything people and culture organisation, and the philosophy is where everybody wins. And I think that's really at the centre of who we are. So for us, it's really important to share information and for our customers and suppliers and everyone in our community to be sharing and winning together. So really, really great to have you on here today. Corina, I'm not sure if you know, we can't see you. So just so you know that, you might need to turn your video on and off and get that sorted. So I will introduce the panel and then we will get started and really into the conversation. The way we're approaching this today is, there's a lot of doom and gloom in the media. I think everyone can agree with that. And the reality is there are some real challenges in business and specifically in the manufacturing sector. What we want to do is, yes, talk a little bit about those challenges, but really look at things from the lens of how can we use these challenges, think differently, ask some great questions, and then create opportunities. So we're really bringing this session to you today with an opportunity lens and really encourage you to do that. So, as you're thinking and listening and so forth, take some notes and really kind of bring that opportunity lens to the table. So let me introduce everyone here. Belinda is the CEO of the Proven Group. Do you want to do a quick introduction?
Sure. I was born at... No, I'm kidding.
Not that kind of introduction.
So Belinda Fyffe is my name, CEO of the Proven Group. We are a human resources and everything people-related consultancy that specialises in franchises and manufacturing. Manufacturing is my background. I was at Timken many years ago when it was manufacturing here in Ballarat, and also Bendex Mintex, now FMP, and have worked as a consultant in a number of different manufacturing businesses as well. So it's my core. I suppose I like the people. They're always very genuine people, and a lot of them are family businesses as well, which we find really appealing, and being able to help them out, what it's really all about. Thanks, Jenny.
Thank you. Thanks. Leon.
Thanks, Jenny. Leon Nash. I'm the CFO at AF Gason in Ararat. Been involved in general management and senior finance positions for 20 years, and just have a passion for manufacturing and what it can do for the economy and what it can do for jobs. So they're probably the two areas of interest for me in manufacturing.
Thank you. Thank you. Robin.
Hi, I'm a CFO also for the former business advisory. I've been a CFO for nearly 30 years now, and the last 10 years as a virtual CFO, which means I've worked effectively, I'm a part-time CFO for a variety of small businesses and a variety of different industries.
You have a special interest in manufacturing.
Yes, I do.
Excellent. Corina, you're having an issue with your video, but you've got great content to share. So we're happy to have your voice today.
I'm so sorry. At least you can hear me, right?
We can hear you. You sound great.
I've never had a problem with Zoom before, but there you go.
Never a dull moment.
Yeah. Hi, everybody. I'm Corina Kozaris. I'm General Manager of HR Safety and Environment at Selkirk Brick in Ballarat. I've been with the company for 17 years. I came on board originally in a procurement and supply chain role, and I've sort of progressed through to regulation compliance into safety, and 6 years ago now took on HR as well as that. So I've had a varied journey, but very enjoyable, very challenging, as I'm sure you can imagine, with the complexity of running a diverse operation as we do here in Ballarat.
Thank you. Thanks, Corina. Now let's just do a little kind of discussion quickly about the core challenges. So we know that there's a lot of discussion about inflation, and there's a lot of discussion about the cost of living, which I do think has an impact on business. Stressed people have an impact on business. So we know we've got this financial pressure. So, you know, with inflation, the cost of goods is going up. So let's have a conversation about this. Leon, do you want to start us off? How are you approaching this? What's the impact? Let's start with what is the impact for you?
Well, there's multiple impacts, and some of them are related to the economic situation, and some are just related to location. And you know, we find ourselves in a more regional location than many of the others. You know, in Ballarat, up in Ararat, and you know, one of the key challenges for us is actually getting skilled labour. And you know, I know that's a problem that Corina will have as well, and Robin will see it in the businesses he's in. You know, skilled labour is a real problem. Inflation, you know, whilst for us it's certainly, we've seen it taper off in the last few months. You know, the previous 12 months before that was astronomical in terms of inflation. Most of our business is done with metal, and metal prices. You know, it's no secret they went up about 60% before they started to flatten off. So we've had some significant challenges around what that means for our profitability and viability within the business, and running through all those sort of things does have an impact. You know, the fact that gas prices increased 100%. Almost overnight in May last year, in May 22, that created a lot of challenges for many manufacturers who utilise natural gas. So it came in many different forms, and it comes in many different forms. You know, CPI, wages and cost of people certainly doesn't help manufacturing in that regard, but you need people, and our business is one that definitely needs a lot of people. So we're very much not a production line. We're more of a job shop arrangement. So for us, it's very, very much around our people costs.
So can I ask you, what are the questions you're asking yourself and other manufacturers could ask when you're faced in a situation where you've got these rising costs? What are you asking yourself to then work out where to from here, and how can we somehow do something to find that profitability and that sustainability?
Well, for me, it's not all about cost. If it's all about cost, we'll shrink ourselves into oblivion. So it's also about, you know, what levels of pricing is acceptable in the marketplace, and what level of efficiency can we improve upon in our production facilities. So for us, it's really been a case of focusing on the things that help reduce your costs without having to necessarily reduce your headcount. And from a labour perspective, from a materials perspective, it was very much what are we doing in relation to pricing, because you know these costs are affecting everyone, and we can't do anything except pass a lot of that on to our customers. Unfortunately for them as well, they're hit with that. But customers and suppliers are an interesting conundrum because one can't survive without the other. So, and when you're in manufacturing, it's an interesting field to be in because what ends up happening is that you take into account all of these things, and you have to take the highs and ride the lows out. And our business is very much one historically that's been quite cyclical with weather patterns. We do a lot of metal product and particularly agricultural equipment, large agricultural equipment, and the agricultural sector very much is driven by weather, and the consumers want to spend their money and not pay tax, not pay as much tax anyway, and those sort of things come into it very much so.
Yeah, thank you. Really, really interesting. When you and I were speaking, one of the things that we discussed quite a bit was in relation to customer relationship, and the importance in complex times, uncertain times, to have strong relationships. Can you just talk a little bit about your strategy around relationships?
Yeah, look, we have a very strong group of customers that we categorise as our key customers. Not all of our customers, but certainly a handful of customers that we look to partner with. And we're not looking to try and create a supplier-customer relationship. We're trying to create a business relationship that is made up of two parts, one with us and one with the customer. And to that end, what we're trying to do is understand with our customer, what are their pain points? What are the problems that they see in their business that we might be able to help with? What are the pains that we're creating with how we do things for them? And how do we go about that? And you can't do that with your entire customer base, more than likely. Some people might say they can. You need to be selective where you allocate your resource. And, we have probably 10 key customers that for us are sort of the ones that we're trying to create relationships with long term, supply and understand and help them get better and help us get better at the same time.
Yeah, I love that. I think customer relationships are really, really critical in an uncertain market, really in any market. But specifically in this kind of market, being able to work together to common goals is just so important. Robin, can you share a little bit about what you're seeing in the market in relation to the cost situation, and what you're suggesting your customers are asking themselves and looking at?
There's another key aspect that we've experienced in the last few years, and that's about freight. The cost of freight has doubled and more than doubled, which is enormous. So if you're importing materials or if you're exporting your finished goods, that's a major consideration to take into account. Not just the cost, though, also the reliability of the freight service. And there's been all sorts of problems, whether it's wars or COVID outbreaks in China or port issues, delays at Los Angeles harbour. They are major factors to some companies. And so that's affecting the whole lead cycle in getting materials in to work on. Actually, some companies have actually built up the inventories, which is a costly exercise, but they built them up just to make sure they've got that supply available. And then,
Robin, sorry, can I just ask you a question about that? Because I think it's a very real issue in manufacturing, and it certainly has been, over the last couple of years. Can we just talk about that for a second? So what questions should people be asking themselves? And, are you recommending, I don't know, but diversification of suppliers? And I don't know, Leon, if you want to jump in here as well. Have you needed to diversify suppliers to ensure that you know, you've got the raw materials that you need.
Yeah, I think people are starting to realise it's not a good policy to rely on one source these days. So they are starting to diversify if possible. I mean, I know some of the key materials are still in one country, like computer chips in Taiwan, but people are looking at that, and not just that, but they're saying, are we better off buying from overseas, or can we get it from Australia, where we think we've got a bit more certainty about getting the products? So there's opportunities there.
Really, really interesting, Leon.
Yeah, I think COVID in many ways changed how business work and what they do, and certainly we saw a very strong movement towards Australian made, and more than just sentiment in that regard, that people actually were moving away from perhaps the ways we'd done for 20 or 30 years. Price was the only thing that drove consumer sentiment, and they've started to say, what can I actually get that's Australian made, good Australian made product, and manufacturing. That's real positive. After sort of 30 years of lots of negative press in manufacturing, one of the key things is manufacturing still 9% of GDP. Same as construction, same as mining. It's a huge segment of the Australian economy. So.
Really interesting. Thank you. Belinda, we're going to go to talk to you. Let's talk about the workforce. So in manufacturing, one of the very important pieces of the puzzle are the wonderful people who work in manufacturing. Leon mentioned that it's difficult at times to find skilled labour, and I know that there are some people nodding who are here listening who have also had those challenges, I know, with finding skilled labour. Let's talk about the workforce and workforce planning. So, traditionally businesses have existed and they've had a certain structure. What are the questions that businesses could be asking themselves about the planning of their workforce?
I love that question, Jenny. Thank you. And I'll pick up on a point that Leon made earlier, which was around efficiencies. So really planning your workforce is about having that top-down look at your business, and what are the product lines that we're making that are profitable? What are the product lines that are the ones that are really getting us those customers that we want? What are the ones that we want to move forward with, into the future? And then having a look at, well, okay, how are we currently doing that manufacturing of those product lines? How many people does that take? Are there efficiencies that we can actually introduce into that process, and therefore either reduce the headcount or reduce the skill requirement of the people that we have? So perhaps we could go for a lower skilled person that there may be more of and more availability of in the marketplace than necessarily a higher skilled person. Are we looking at things like introducing an afternoon shift or a night shift? What are the ways that we can actually get the most out of our particular process at the moment? But then looking at at the forecasts as well. So in 12 months, in 2 years, in 5 years, in 10 years, spending a little bit of time to say, okay, what's our core business? Where are we looking to grow in the future? Where are we looking to cut back? And what do our people needs look like around that? Human resources are called a resource for a reason. They are, although not owned by the business because we've gotten rid of our slavery laws some time ago, we're hopefully looking at, the best utilisation of those people, so that, one, they can have job security and they can have, learn new skills, and they can have more challenge in their roles and all those kinds of things. Every time there's a new technology that comes out, there's a certain segment of society that feels threatened, because of that technology. AI is the kind of latest version. But if you go all the way back to the Industrial Revolution in England, which was when, machines first started going in and factories were first built in textiles, we had the Luddites that used to go in and break the machines because they didn't want people taking the work of the other people who were always a cottage industry working from home. So, there's a lot of opportunity out there, but it's also about working smarter with your people And, you know, one of the key ways to do that is having a planned approach, I would think.
Belinda, you said about 10 things that I want to pick up on.
Awesome.
So let's kind of unpack them. And Corina, I think you're going to jump in a second here too.
Sure.
So, you know, to me, when I hear about an industry that, you know, it's difficult to employ people in, I always kind of go towards, well, how do we make ourselves more attractive? So what are the, you know, how do we look at that kind of employee benefits package? I don't want to use the word employer of choice, but how do we build a package that's pulling people in rather than us having to kind of pull them begging and screaming, you know?
We need people coming, yeah.
So what are let's just talk about this employer benefits, and I'd love to know, maybe Corina, actually, you might start us off on this.
Sure.
Do you want to talk, I know you're passionate about the area of employee benefits. What kind of package and thoughts are you putting in to ensure that you can attract people?
Absolutely. Look, we all know it's been incredibly difficult to attract people during the labour market over the last few years. So we sat down and we brainstormed, how do we go about not only attracting, but then also once people come on board, that they have a great onboarding experience, and that they then, you know, immediately feel part of the Selkirk culture. One thing we came up with was introducing a new communications and rewards platform. Some of you may have heard of Reward Gateway. I think there are other similar products out there, but we had a great experience with them, customising that platform to have Selkirk branding and to be structured in a way that we wanted. It includes things like photos of all of our staff so people can easily see who are their new workmates. It introduces new workmates to the team. We've got, you know, little blogs and updates on Selkirk news. And it's also a discount platform, which, you know, if used to its fullest, can deliver quite significant savings to our employees across everything imaginable in the retail space, from groceries to, you know, your big box retailers to travel and you name it, everything's there. So that's one thing we've done, which is really something quite different for our staff. You know, we've been here 140 years and we still have quite a few old timers, I guess you'd say, who certainly haven't experienced anything like that before. And then, of course, we've got a young cohort as well, sort of kicking off their careers here. So yeah, so that's something that we've found still early days, but we're really pleased with how that's being taken on.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. So I mean, you know, Belinda, can you take that a bit further and put your thoughts onto that whole employee benefit? What are people looking for? I mean, one of the challenges is, you know, everyone's talking about work from home. Yeah.
Can't run a machine from home.
So how do we package that into something wonderful?
Yeah. And it comes back to, you know, what does your particular cohort of employees value? You know, what is the thing that they're looking for? Because it doesn't really, you know, you could have this awesome suite of things that you offer, but are they actually the things that the people that you're trying to motivate actually value? You know, so do they value, like I had an employer that I worked with once that had a thing called a doona day. So, you know, if they hit a certain sales target or whatever, they'd give them an extra annual leave day. And the idea was that they could stay under their doona for the day. So they'd call it doona day. I'm having my doona day. Like, you know, that was one, but that was really useful for that particular team. That was in a retail environment, but similar to manufacturing in that you've got to be there in order to you know, make the business run. So flexibility is massive, as we've already heard, the whole work from home thing. Unfortunately, that only really applies to possibly about 40% of the workforce. The rest of the workforce actually has to be at their place of work in order to be able to do their job. And manufacturing is certainly in that category. There's certain roles in manufacturing, obviously, that you can do a partial work from home with. But as far as the factory jobs themselves go, you need people on the lines. Like, they've got to be there. And they've got to be there on time, because if they're not there, the machine doesn't run, and like all of those kinds of things. So looking at possibly incentives that are tied to the things that you need done, Having said that, money is never a motivator. I find that really fascinating. There's never, ever been a piece of research done that shows that if you pay people more, they'll put in more. If you don't pay them at the market rate, they'll certainly know about it and tell you about it, and they'll be demotivated. So I'm not saying you can cheap out on people, but just paying them more is not enough. So it's things like, how am I being looked after? To pick up on Corina's point, onboarding. You know, onboarding is done poorly in most employers. If you can improve your onboarding space, and if you're losing people in the first 12 months, your onboarding isn't up to scratch. And potentially there's something wrong with your recruitment process as well. So if that's the case, then it could potentially do with a lot of a relook at all of that sort of stuff. So how are they feeling valued? Are they getting the information that they need? Like, are they 3 or 4 or 6 months in, and then they're going, wow, I didn't know that. And it's a major piece of what they actually need to know to do their job. So having a look at onboarding, not as an overarching thing that everyone gets the same thing, but really having a look at it for the different departments and different areas in the business and saying, what do you need to know? What do you need to know on day 1? What do you need to know on week 1, month 3? You know, onboarding takes time to do well. And that's the thing that a lot of people don't put in. The other point I wanted to make, sorry, just totally aside, is before they even start with you, when you get new people in, how are you finding your people? So this is a, you know, one of my little soapboxes. So apologies to anyone who's heard this one before. But recruitment is one of these things that recruitment is a really tough gig. It's tough to get it right, you know. There's lots and lots of inputs into it. But if you're wanting people to come to you as opposed to you having to go to the market and drag people into your business, if you're wanting people to come knocking on your door saying, hey, I hear this is a great place, what's it like? And can you come and talk to me? And like all that sort of stuff. Your current workforce has to be the people out there selling that in social situations, in, you know, when they're down the street at the groceries and they run into Betty, you know, they're talking to her about it and that sort of thing. The only way they'll do that is if they feel really valued. So Corina's stuff with the reward gateway sounded awesome. I'm going to look at that. That's a really great way to look at it. For those that perhaps aren't big enough for something like that, or that, you know, may be too expensive if they don't have the numbers, then, you know, look at partners that you've already got within your business that could be offering something awesome. So, for instance, Rest Superannuation offers amazing discounts for people who are members and things like that. So there are lots of things that you're already having to pay for. Everyone has to pay super if they've got employees. Who's your preferred super fund? Talk to them. What can they offer you? You know, there are other things around in your business that you can utilize if you're not at the stage where you could jump onto something like Reward Gateway, which sounds amazing. I wrote that down, obviously. So yeah, so recruitment is about, and here's the key, people, this is my little gem for the day. Recruitment is about sales. You are selling a job when you are recruiting. That is what you are doing. You are not talking about yourself. You're not talking about your own business. You're not saying we want you to have blah, blah, blah. They're boring, those ads. They're so boring. What you're wanting to do is entice candidates in. You want to get as many candidates interested in your role as you possibly can. Tell them what they're going to get. Tell them what you can offer. Tell them what you're going to do differently to the place down the road where they could get the same money in the same sort of job. And those things are really things that you're already doing. They're probably things that you take for granted. They're probably things you don't think about twice. But when you get an external person in that asks you stuff, they can go, wow. So, for instance, I'm looking at Liz there. Liz mentioned how great it is at Gold Acres to have parking that is on asphalt. Oh, my God. Like, there's no mud. She doesn't have to put her gumboots on to get from the car to the door, you know, in this manufacturing, which her previous employer she had to do that with. So, you know, what are the things that you can have a bit of fun with and you can get out there and show people that you're a fun place to work, you understand what's important, and you're just real.
I love that. Love. I mean, one of the really easy ways to do that is actually to ask your employees. What would you say, Belinda?
What a revolutionary idea. Let's just ask the people.
So ask your employees. You can even video some of their responses in a very low-key way and share this through your job ads. I think it's also interesting. You know, we're not really talking about marketing today, But I think it's really interesting in today's day and age, looking at the marketing of your business, obviously as marketing and customer focused, but also employee attraction focused. So it really is about demonstrating the culture of the organisation and showcasing the activities and strategies and incredible initiatives like Corina mentioned that you have in place, and get employee reactions to this kind of stuff put out there. Corina,
Absolutely.
yeah. Oh, this is fun. Really, you know, I'd love everyone who's here just to maybe share in the chat just kind of one kind of light bulb moment for you and something that you kind of want to pick up from that discussion. Corina, I know that well-being has been a real focus for you.
Yep.
Do you want to just talk a little bit about that? I mean, you know, we used to come to work and, you know, leave your problems at the door kind of thing. You've got some very kind of male, high male driven workplaces, and, you know, talking about our feelings and, you know, isn't really comfortable or that normal for a lot of people. What are some of the initiatives you've put in place to really kind of focus on the, you know, well-being of your people?
Sure. Look, I think I'd link that to culture and making sure that we have the right people in the right roles, and our attitude towards unacceptable behaviour, whether that's safety related or otherwise, has to be consistent so that people do feel safe at work. They're happy to get involved. They feel that this is a place where unacceptable behaviour isn't tolerated, really. And yes, look, we have had initiatives around that. You know, there's a lot more focus on mental health these days. So we do promotions in the workplace. We've now just recently trained 3 new mental health first aiders, which is wonderful to see people putting up their hands to want to do that. Yeah, so they're a couple of examples. And also picking up on continuing that onboarding journey that Belinda was talking about. Training is the other area where we've really struggled in the past to show people what the plan is for them when they join the organisation. So it's very clear how they're going, what progress they're making, and what they can expect in the future. That's not just purely focused on the tasks that they're being trained in, but also an element of personal development in that. So
yeah, I love that. I really love that. Could you share a little bit about how you go about that process?
Sure. Well, for the first time, we've actually at the beginning of this year appointed a dedicated training coordinator, and she has just gone in and made such a difference. She really has been able to build bridges with the guys on the floor, really get involved in understanding their training needs. Really, you know, gone are the days where you can just hand out an SOP and say, read that, sign it, done. Training finished, let's move on. It's just not like that at all. And we really want to make sure that people understand the training that they're being delivered, and then they can demonstrate that they're competent in that training. And then they're going to be confident, they've got a better understanding about why, not just the what I have to do today, but how does this fit into the bigger picture of the business? That's just so important. And, you know, she's managing to bring everything together where we've tried before but failed. We've got people who've been with the business a long time who have huge amounts of knowledge, and they're willing to share it, but it's not documented anywhere. And then they leave, and suddenly there's these big holes where, you know, we've got to go and try and join the dots on something they would have just said, oh, this is how you do it, and in they'd go. So that's the other massive project that we've got on the go, which we've already seen dividends of. Yeah.
I think training and, you know, professional development, you know, comes in lots of shapes and sizes, and informal and formal and external and internal and videos and online and face-to-face and virtual. I mean, you know, it comes in so many shapes and sizes. You know, linking that back to that employee benefits that we were talking about before, you know, helping an individual be able to really understand where they want to go and helping them drive their career forward is an enormous benefit. most people haven't worked in a workplace that actually care enough about them to help them drive their career forward and really look at what are their passions and what are their strengths and really helping them develop that. Leon, how do you go about that in your organisation?
Well, it's a challenge for us in a regional location, quite more regional than Ballarat, as I said, but it's something that's so key to the way you go about doing things in the business because, you know, as Corina was saying, you know, that person that leaves who's always done activity A and they know how to do it like the back of their hand, but it's not written down somewhere, that can be a real problem for you. So you have to work out what you need in each area and for each person, and it needs to be personalised. It's got to be quite specific. It's one of the challenges we face in our business at the moment is how do we do that right, and how do we do it appropriately for what we need in the business. We've got a few people going through those sorts of programs at the moment, but we need to be developing that program further to enhance what we're able to do in our manufacturing side of things.
And Corina, is this around technical skills, or are we talking? We like to refer to them as human skills, otherwise known as soft skills. But you know, is it the balance between both, or is there a bias towards more the technical skill?
Oh, look, I'd say it covers the full range, but the technical skill for the operators and the technical roles is definitely a real focus for us. Yes.
Yeah. It's really interesting because you know, we talk to a lot of organisations around their business strategy, and then, you know, we're looking at the people strategy, and often the people strategy and the business strategy are not really aligned. And so looking at, you know, how do you actually look at where your business is going and what are the skills that the workforce is going to need to be able to help the business achieve that strategy. So it's a real kind of moving with the business kind of and helping that growth. So yeah, really interesting. Thanks for sharing that. Now let's talk about efficiency and innovation. So we know that efficiency is just, you know, I mean, it's everywhere at the moment. You know, it's really come into our world. Let's say, you know, if we talked about artificial intelligence 12 months ago, everyone would have said, oh, that's something in the future, you know, like, you know, that's something that's going to happen one day. Whereas, you know, I'd love to know how many of you are interacting with artificial intelligence every single day. Maybe a little comment in the chat. I know I certainly have my best friend who helps me out every day. So let's talk in terms of manufacturing, and I want to bring in a couple of people who I know are here, who I can see who have some expertise in this area as well. Robin, do you want to start us off? Efficiency and innovation. What questions should businesses be asking themselves?
Well, one is what technology's out there now that we're not using. So you might have had the same machine for 10 years and there's much, much better machines that you can connect to the internet. You can do set up your templates and the machine will do the work for you, which is one, safe, because it's doing the job more efficiently. Say it's a board being cut up by a CNC machine. The machine's a lot better than a human being at doing it, and it also does it more efficiently because it's using the available materials to the maximum capacity. So that's one thing. Using the internet, there's connectivity to suppliers and customers as well, which helps you to order the right materials when you know a customer wants an order to be fulfilled. That can happen a lot faster. There's also the availability of materials. And today, can I go on to the environment? Is it part of this?
You go on to the environment, definitely.
Yeah.
Let's call that innovation.
Yeah. Yes. So people are very concerned about the environment and the materials being used and whether they're affecting the carbon and the atmosphere and all of that. what's available today, what's been developed that we can use that may be slightly more expensive, but the fact that you're using it is a great marketing tool. You can go out and say, we're doing this environmentally friendly product. This is what our product contains. You're going to have a much better rapport with the audience out there. So your cost might be slightly more, but your revenue can be higher because of that branding.
You know, really interesting. I think that really this comes back to Leon's discussion around really knowing your customer and understanding what their pain points are and what their needs are. Really, really interesting and important conversation. Corina, Leon, are either of you as organisations, well, can you share some thoughts of what you're doing in terms of that sustainability kind of aspect?
Sure. Look, we are we've got a project team at the moment working on our different waste streams and just having a new look at those, I guess, making sure that everything is categorised correctly and stored correctly, removed correctly. It's a big job, you know, when you've got a manufacturing operation and a mining operation as well. Yes, we've been working with EPA and other partners as well on reuse options for our broken brick, for example. So that's a great foot forward as well, which certainly fits with the overall circular economy direction.
Yeah, love it. Thank you. Leon, what about you?
Jenny, probably one of the things that we've worked on is anyone that's been anywhere near Gason in Ararat will know that we're bordered by houses in every direction from the plant, and noise pollution is something that is a real item that, you know, historically you might have said something like, well, you built next to a factory, what do you expect? But that sort of an approach is not sort of really acceptable these days. So we've had some noise sampling done around the housing in the areas around us, and we've actually installed rapid doors on most of our exterior doors to the plant now. So when there is, and we do some quite noisy activities on site, predominantly not requiring hearing protection, but close, and the noise protection that you need, you know, you still need earmuffs to operate that equipment, and when you work in a manufacturing location, noise bounces a long way. So having the capability to have those rapid doors, you know, we've installed those in the last 2 years on pretty much all of our external doors, has reduced our noise pollution around us. So it's looking at all of those activities that make sense for your business. So, you know, we had some complaints and whatnot that we needed to look at that. You know, Corina's in a different boat with both mining and manufacturing, and Robin sees it with all his clients too. So.
Yeah, thank you. Peter Gass, I hope you're okay. I'm going to bring you up here. Apologies for the short notice. Peter works with a company called Majestic Computer Technology, who specialise in, you know, efficiency and automation and so forth for a lot of, you know, different industries. Peter, can you maybe share with us some of the questions that businesses in manufacturing should be asking themselves today? I mean, there's just so much out there, isn't there? What should they be asking?
Yeah, good question, Jenny. We find a lot of organizations, especially in engineering and manufacturing, etc., are looking for ways to improve their workflow process. That's a big thing, because we find, especially with smaller manufacturers who maybe have, you know, 5 or 10 people in the office, and then the manufacturing crew tend to just do things amongst themselves and not think broadly enough to think about, okay, how can we improve this so that it works better for everyone, not just for the people in the back office? So we're doing a lot with companies where we look at their systems, we look at how they book in their work, how they source their materials, how they manage their labor, the rostering, etc. And we put together a solution just to improve that in terms of efficiency. initially there's always hesitation because they think, oh no, we don't need this, it won't work, we've done things similar. But once we go through an audit process and show them the process and present the results, they sit back and go, okay, yep, that's going to save us money, improve our efficiencies, improve our sourcing of tooling, resources, etc., and just make our entire operation more efficient. So definitely technology does play a big part in manufacturing. And as you mentioned with AI, etc., that's also now starting to get a foothold in industry, and not just manufacturing, but across the board, professional services, HR, everything. People are using it in different ways, and it is constantly evolving. So it's only going to get better. It's no different to if you were comparing it to, say, electric cars. Yes, they're expensive and there's not many out there, but there's more coming. It's getting cheaper, infrastructure. It's the same with AI. If you look at it, that it's early stages, but this is what it can do today, but tomorrow it'll do much more. And if you get on board early, then you'll reap the rewards.
That open mindset, isn't it?
Open mindset.
Yeah. Peter, Leon, Corina, Robin, Belinda, I'd love everyone's thoughts. I imagine there's a feeling of threat from technology. And I'm sure, Peter, you hear this all the time. You know, well, but what's going to happen to Mary's job? What's going to happen to Phil's job? You know, if we bring in a technology that does their whole job. How are you tackling that conversation, and what's your recommendation? Is it about lowering headcount? Is it about deploying headcount into usually in business there's endless tasks that need to be done that are probably much more efficient and effective than the manual ones. What are you seeing? Peter, do you want to start us off?
Yeah. I mean, what we're seeing is it's not a case of it's a threat. It's a case of, okay, how can we help this person improve their role and what they're doing and make them more efficient? So where technology comes in, it's about saving time and improving those efficiencies in what that person is doing. So we're finding it's not about replacing that person, it's about enhancing their role and actually making their role bigger, because then they get to look at the broader picture and understand what else they can do and how it can all fit in with this new technology that's come in and is assisting. So we're seeing it's more about assistance than culling people and removing people from roles, etc. So companies are actually growing by implementing technology. Again, it all boils back to workflow efficiency. So that's what the technology is doing for them.
I'm also interested to find out, I'm not sure who's best to answer this, but I'd love your thoughts around the mental health side of it. We all want to work in groover and shaker organisations. We all want to work in organisations that are, cutting edge and really looking at better ways of doing things and on that continuous improvement journey all the time. Leon, Corina, maybe do you want to share with us a little bit about your experience of when you are, obviously there's the whole change management piece, which can be interesting at times, but what's your experience of the joy and I suppose, positivity of the outcome of some of these projects of improving processes?
Yeah, Jenny, I might start. I think taking people on the journey with you is really important with this whole process. And I agree with everything Peter's saying in terms of the way that you need to approach your innovation and technology. It really isn't about replacing people's jobs. It's changing their jobs, but you need to take them on the journey of why you're doing it and where it's going to and why you need to do it. As Henry Ford once said, if you ask the average person, they'd say they wanted a faster horse. We don't have faster horses now. So, arguably we're better off, arguably. But in terms of, manufacturing and what goes on in manufacturing, there's nothing as constant as change in manufacturing, and we're all very much aware of what you need to do, and you need to, if you're doing the same thing you did last year, you're probably not quite fast enough and going to get caught up with. So, you just need to take people with you on the journey and explain to them. Communication's unbelievably important. All forms of communication, but particularly the verbal communication with individuals who are impacted by whatever you happen to be doing. So we've certainly found that a lot in the last 4 years. So, yeah.
Thank you. Corina, what are you finding in this area?
Look, I'd say where technology has made a huge impact in our business is in safety. So the safety systems now that are built into our machines and any upgrades that occur have just been fantastic, because it really means that people are protected. They can interact safely with machines with confidence. We're not relying on human behaviour, taking shortcuts, for example, or tempted to, just quickly make a change without it without being confident that it's safe before they do so. So, yeah, we've invested extremely heavily in that space. But look, I think the overarching message is that technology is an opportunity and to learn new skills. We're in the middle of transitioning to a new business system as well, so we've just got a bit on. So that's also
going on there.
Affect everyone in the business, and you've just got to look at that positively and the efficiencies and improvements to our business processes that will come from that.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you.
Communication.
Yes,
sorry, Jen, I've just got to say something about communication.
Please do.
My favourite topic. You can't over communicate with people. So, that's the other thing that managers often think that I've done so much communication, and they have. I'm not saying they haven't, but it's not enough. It doesn't matter. And it's not about finding another mechanism to communicate with people. It's not about emailing or newslettering or whiteboarding or, they're all mechanisms. It's about providing the person with the right information at the right time in the right way so that they can get the information they actually need. And so that involves a lot of repetition, a lot of, singing from the same hymn book across the organisation so that people are getting a consistent message, and that makes them feel, because we're all emotional creatures at the end of the day, it makes them feel more secure, more that the business and the leaders know what they're doing. We can trust them. We can, they're going to do the right thing for us, all of that kind of stuff. And it's the other point I wanted to make is just how quickly we develop habits as people. So, anytime you're trying to develop a new habit that's good for you, it seems to take forever. But trust me, a bad habit you can pick up like that. Every time I run a training session that's more than one day, inevitably, when people walk in on the second day, they will go and sit at the same seat that they were at yesterday. And that's even if they're in a building they've never been in prior to that first day of the training. And I will always say on the second day, could you sit somewhere else, to like the first person that comes in? And then I let them tell everyone else so that I've got this illustration of how to do change poorly later in the day, because I don't change. I make them change. I make them tell each other about the change, all of that sort of stuff. And you get some people who are like, no, I don't want to move. Or they'll move one seat, way to think. And I always say, way to think outside, but right up next to the box, So there's, we get set in our sort of ways. This is where I'm sitting, or this is what I'm doing very quickly. So taking the people along for the journey, massive. Don't think you've over communicated. Doesn't happen.
Yeah, thank you. So important. We've got a couple of minutes left. I'd love to open up the questions. I was hoping we'd have a bit more time, but got very engrossed in our conversation. What questions do people have? Please, you can put your hand up. You can use your reaction, put your hand up, or you can use the chat. In the absence of questions, I'm going to pull a couple of people up. Phil Wallace, I'm just pulling you up, just so you know. Phil, you also work with a technology solution for making it efficient in terms of collecting all of the materials and all of the licenses and critical pieces of information from people in the business. Do you want to share a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure, Jen. Thanks. Look, what we do, it's all about compliance. It's not very sexy, but it is a necessary thing. So it's about reducing effort and speeding things up. So whether it's pre-employment checks, getting them done quickly and efficiently, potentially integrated into your HRIS system, as well as, removing a task as simple as checking the visa status on a right to work check. We do those things for you. So reduce and eliminate those tasks. So it's about it's really about reducing that effort. If you're sending anything out to anyone on an email and expecting it to be done, or managing anything off a spreadsheet, stop doing it. It really needs to be digitized. The modern environment today, the young folk are doing everything off their mobiles and more. They need it done quickly. They want to get through that onboarding process really quickly. They want all those background checks that they have to climb through to get into your organization done quickly. And so that's what it's all about, just speeding it all up.
You. Thanks, Bill. Thanks. Madonna, you've got a question. Welcome.
Hi, everyone. Leon mentioned very early on in the piece about the price of gas. And then that got me thinking around, okay, with all the new changes coming into play from switching off gas and converting everyone to electricity, how may that affect the manufacturing industry in a whole? Like, will that be, as a whole collective, will it be a better outcome or not? Have we thought about that as yet?
Well, Madonna, from our perspective, we use quite a lot of natural gas for heating and for because we have one of our operations is painting and to dry the paint. So we will have to invest in an alternative solution for that when that time comes. And planning for that now means that we're not put in a hurry. We're not doing it in a hurry, and being prepared for those sorts of things. Spending some time on, where are you going in your business, as Peter and Robin were talking about earlier. Being aware of what the challenges are that are coming up and sort of asking yourself, what are the challenges, and just thinking about it for a while are really important things that, key people in manufacturing need to do.
Finding the time for that's always the issue, though, isn't it, Leon?
Madonna, while you're here, I'm going to ask you, Madonna specialises in helping businesses get grants. What sort of opportunities are there in manufacturing at the moment?
There's still your general grants in terms of your match funding and co-contributions. So manufacturing generally does need some bigger ticket funding. So quite often that comes with that co-contribution. So to be aware that if you are to enter into that grant space, that you do need to have some finance or some proof of finance behind you. But grants are broken down into metro, regional, and also rural. So Leon, you were talking about Ararat versus Ballarat versus Metro City. And just as a collective, you're all in the industry of manufacturing, but what are the activities you're doing within your business? Because there are grants for manufacturing, but then there's grants for the activities that you're doing within your industry of manufacturing. So there's many, I call low-hanging fruit. So we talked about wages. There's still a lot of stimulus to assist with putting on staff. There is some assistance around digitisation and general business operations. So when you think of grants, don't just think of those big ticket items. There are some wonderful opportunities in that low-hanging fruit area that can free up money and time to assist you with that big purchase of, say, equipment or something.
Thank you. Thanks, Madonna. I think that's really food for thought. Thank you, everyone, for joining. Thank you, everyone, for being part of it. Corina, Leon, Robin, and Belinda, for your contribution. Really enjoyed the discussion. I think there were some really important gems of information and questions that businesses should be asking themselves shared. So thank you to everyone who has shared, and thank you to everyone who's on here listening. We will have the recording of the session available, and we'll send that through to everyone. And feel free to share it and use it and, benefit from it. And we look forward to seeing you at a future event. So thank you. Have a lovely afternoon.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.